guys, welcome back to my channel, BH Chat. This channel is to inform you and whoever wants to know about the music scene in New York City, especially choral music. And I have some guests here that I have so much pleasure talking to them, and I'm sharing this with you. So stick with us. Today, I want to introduce my guest. Let me tell you a little story. Like back in 2012. I came to New York City to try a new life and everything, and I was mesmerized by the quality of music that is made here in the city, and everything that you have access to in terms of professional music. And I never had that back in my hometown in Brazil. So when I got here, I got mesmerized, and I started working with my passion, which is choral music, and I started writing stuff. And the first piece that I wrote here in the US was my Ave Verum Corpus setting. And I sent to some people, like, I just searched on the internet, like some conductors and some choirs, and I sent to some people just to get a foot on the door. And my guest for today, she reached out to me, and she loved the piece, and she told me like, oh, I want to perform this with my choir. And we're gonna perform this. This was 2013, and we're gonna perform this in Montclair, New Jersey. Would you like to see and everything? And I was like, I cannot believe that in just 1 year of New York City, I got a beautiful choir, formerly known as Hudson Scholar, Schola Cantorum on Hudson.
There you go.
Yes. And it's been more than 10 years, so cut me some slack. And they sang beautifully, and I was mesmerized, and I saw myself like, oh, I have a premiere in the US. This was such a big deal for me at the time. It still is. And because of that interaction, me and my guest, we had a really fruitful relationship in terms of music. I went to her wedding, and I sang with her multiple times. I hired her to conduct one of my pieces because, in my opinion, she's one of the best conductors in New York City that I had the pleasure to work with. And now, without further ado, please help me welcome Dr. Deborah King.
Hello, everybody. Thank
How
you.
are you doing, Deborah?
I'm doing well.
Oh, amazing, amazing. Oh, so thank you so much for doing this. As I tell everybody that is watching my channel, I tell this every time because I have such a pleasure to talk to people, to like-minded people just like me, in terms of being musicians and for our love towards music. And I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. I always start my first question, giving you the space to share with our public, like, who you are and what do you do. Just tell us.
Okay. Well, my full professional name is Deborah King, and I have a varied background. Started out equally voice, conducting, and musicology. Yeah, my PhD is actually in musicology, which most people don't know.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they see doctor, they assume it's a DMA, because primarily what I do now is serve as a conductor, which is I consider a great privilege. But I still love singing, and still do some of that, and I still incorporate all that I learned in the study through musicology. In the preparation of scores, in understanding new music. There's a depth that you get through studying historical scores that certainly speaks to new music. So I still enjoy all three areas, and it shows the most in the field of conducting on the podium. So that's what I do primarily. The business that you referenced, formerly known as Schola Cantorum on Hudson, that did your premiere,
Yes.
is now known through a rebrand as Ember Choral Arts. And that is a business that I founded, and it's kind of multifaceted. Certainly core to it is the performing ensemble that you have sung with and that did your premiere. It would be called a chamber ensemble by most people, 25 to 30 singers.
Yes.
And so I do that. Part of that operation also is Project Encore, which you also know something about. We may get into that in a little bit. And through Project Encore, we work with many composers all around the world, and that's a big part of my heart, is working with composers. Another hat that I wear, I'm privileged to serve as on the vocal faculty of Manhattan School of Music. I very much enjoy working with the young generation coming up. I believe so strongly in the importance of the arts in what our world is going to be. Yes. Not only what our world is now, but what it is going to be in the future. And I think the arts have a great deal to say about that, and a great deal to move within each of us on a daily basis. So I'm very passionate about that, enjoying that a great deal. And I also serve Trinity Episcopal Church in Asbury Park, New Jersey, as the music director there, and very much enjoy that. So that's kind of an overview. I mean, I loved working with your music. The recording that we did together, that was so much fun.
Oh yeah.
And I've enjoyed working with Lincoln Center when we do the large 1,000-voice projects in the summer. I enjoy being a conductor on that sort of thing. So, other things come up.
Wow, as you could see, she does everything. She's all over the place because she's that good. Let me tell you this, she's that good. And with that successful career, I'm so grateful that she separated this time for us to talk and to share with you some other information. But Deborah, please, I'm gonna call you Deborah instead of Dr. King, because we are friends at this point.
For a long time.
So Deborah, first question that I have, because at some point in our lives we find out our love to music, and we decided that we're gonna do this professionally. Could you walk us through how you found out that your love is working with music, and what happened in your life at that point that, oh, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to be my career. So could you walk us through that process?
I don't think there was one defining moment. I would tell you there was one moment in which I had decided not to do that, and that was a moment of rebellion, which did not last long. But I don't ever remember not singing. I don't ever remember not making music. I have no memory of not being involved with music. When do you start thinking career, professional pathway, and so forth? To go to school for music after high school made all the sense in the world. My moment of rebellion was somewhere in middle teen years, when it was so clear that all of my family said, well, of course she's going into music, and so I thought, yeah, anything but. But that just lasted about 30 seconds.
Okay.
And I thought, well, of course I had to do music. That's where my heart is. So I went to school for music, and frankly, I chose my undergraduate school for the choral person. I knew that I wanted to be a conductor even when I was in high school, and you and I were just talking about Sound of Music a few minutes ago, and my first kind of semi-big, at least for high school age, conducting experience was that of conducting the Nuns Chorus in a Sound of Music production in high school. And I loved it. I loved teaching people. I loved hearing the ensemble sound come forward, taking individual voices and making a new uniqueness out of, and you know me, I'm not a blender. I don't blend choral voices into a sound. I like to take the uniqueness and train us to listen, which is harder, I think, and get that unique sound. So I very much enjoyed that. I was already at that time studying voice privately with the man who is my primary mentor in my my formation as a professional Karo Karapetian. And in a sense, I'm kind of him in a next generation, in that he was also voice, conductor, and musicologist. His brother, Armen Karapetian, was the founder of the American Musicological Society that has so many publications out. So that was a family that I was kind of brought up through spiritually, if you will, musically, professionally. So I was already studying with him, and it was tough to think in terms of not studying with him because I was going away to school. But I found the conductor that I thought, okay, I can work with this man, I can learn a lot from him. Went to school, undergraduate school for that, ended up with a degree in voice. I thought I would do music education, and I found that I was losing too many courses that I really wanted. I wanted to study fugue, I wanted to study counterpoint, I wanted to really get into the nitty-gritty of music. And the music ed courses are of such great value. But at that point in my life, I felt, I needed more of the music itself. I needed to grow as a musician before I even knew what I could teach. So that was a decision I made. Ended up with my first degree in vocal performance. My second degree was, and this was back in Texas.
Oh, okay.
This is Texas Christian University.
Nice.
Yeah, in Fort Worth. And then up the street to Denton, I went for my graduate work. I studied at that time North Texas State University, which is where my middle degree is from. Technically, that degree is music education. They didn't have a conducting degree at that time, and it's a pliable enough degree that essentially I turned it into a conducting degree. And I did a fellowship during that time, conducting choirs, of course. And after that, I went into musicology, and also at the same place, but then renamed University of North Texas. And that school and Indiana University are the two largest music schools in the country, and it kind of goes back and forth as to which one's a little bit larger than the other. But it was a huge school, but of course musicology was a small piece within it. But that's it would have been a logical decision to do the doctorate in conducting, to do a DMA, because it was very clear to me that that's where I was headed. I was already doing it, and knew that that's what my life would be primarily. And they were starting a DMA program at that time at University of North Texas. I would have been the first student in the program.
First student?
Yeah.
Wow.
That was back a few years. And I did think about it because it was a lovely offer. But I ended up deciding to do musicology because I felt that I just wanted more and more and more depth in terms of where does this come from? How does it work? How did it end up in this way? And why do we see this in this form at this point? And that's what you get in the study of musicology.
Wow. A lot of information. I have so many questions. No. I have so many questions because it's so interesting. Just to put you guys up to speed, like before we started recording this interview, we were talking about Sound of Music because we were talking about makeup and how we put our faces good for the camera, and we were having a conversation about that. And I remembered, like back in the day in Brazil, I used to be a nun for the Brazilian the Brazilian official performance. And I did like 222 performances for the musical and everything. It was almost like Broadway, but back in South America. And I was talking to her that I had to put makeup on, and that's why she told us about the Sound of Music, because it was her first experience doing choral work, to make sure that those different voices, they can come together with a unique sound, basically what you said. And this is, it feels to me that this is one of your passions, to get people to sing together and to create a uniqueness of the sound.
Yes.
So one thing that I need to ask, you said that you're from Texas, right?
Not born in Texas, but
Okay.
my folks moved to Dallas, Texas when I was 10. So
Okay, and you stayed
originally
there for most of your college
up and
career.
schooling, yes.
So, what happened in your life that made you decide to come to New York City?
A job.
Oh, you got a
Yeah, when I finished my doctorate, actually I was offered a job in Minnesota, and it just was too quick a turnaround. I had small children at the time. I would have had to go there for about 6 months without the family, and my youngest child, who was I think 2.5 or 3 at the time, said, "Mommy, that's too much missing," and I agreed with him. So I stayed there. I continued teaching at the University of North Texas that year as an adjunct. while I was looking for the tenure track position that would take me someplace. I didn't know
Okay.
where, and I interviewed many places around the country. And by the time it came time to make a decision, I had 3 that were contenders. And the one that put me in this area, it actually was Jersey City State that I came for. So not New York City, but just across the water. And we felt that this area would give my husband the best opportunity to find, because he's a church musician, excellent church musician, excellent organist and choral man himself. And that would give him the best opportunity to find work, rather than the other 2, which were more isolated.
And how long have you been here in New York City? Since that moment?
I was, 34, 35 at the time. So, yeah, we moved, the first house we had was in Montclair, and we still have the house that's not far from there in East Orange, and of course we're here now in New York City, which also have.
Awesome. So one thing that I ask all my interviewees, because you guys are Native Americans and I don't have that experience. Native Americans meaning born and raised here, not Native Americans the tribe or anything. So my question is, as soon as you arrived to New York City, at the moment that you arrived for your new job and a new life, because you're moving to a different part of the country, so everything is new. What do you see any trends in terms of making music, in terms of when you arrived, how people used to get jobs in terms of, church gigs and gigs with core music, and what's the comparison between that point to today? This interview is being recorded in April 2024. So what's your assessment? Like, did anything change? Have anything changed? Or, it's basically the same? Tell us your experience.
I would say early on, probably I was not in a position to really notice much, because when I came up here, I threw myself totally into that university position. I was not interacting in the gig world in New York City yet, and frankly, I thought when I was getting all the academic bells and whistles, all the way through a PhD, that I was doing this for the sake of a full career just in academia. That's where I thought I was going. What I did not have any way to foresee was that the professional world was going to call a little bit louder, and I love the freedom and the flexibility that you can have with that. It's not as secure, there's no doubt.
Yes.
But there is so much that you can do, frankly, with a mix of academe and the professional world. It's one reason I'm so happy to be back on a campus now, which, I've been on and off campuses doing sabbaticals, work, and so forth, even once I was fully in the independent world. But then once I began to do more of an independent sort of approach to the professional world and need to put a living together. It was, I think at that point we were not yet, and we're talking early 2000s. Okay. At that time, I would say that new music was not as big a deal as it is now. I would say at this point, if you've got a high school choir that isn't performing new music, there's something missing. I mean, that's pretty much the norm. And at that time, when we were doing that with Scola/Ember, that was an outlier. That was unusual. But we've been doing it since way back. That was not. So that's one change. I think there's a lot more awareness of new music. When I was fairly new in the city, and at that point, Ember had moved into being dual residents of New York City and New Jersey. I became active in the New York Choral Consortium, which, as you know, I chair. And at that time, I just went to a meeting, and there was quite some discussion about what do we do with this organization who belongs to both states. And they said, well, okay, we're glad to welcome you aboard. And one thing led to another, and I've served as chair for quite a while, but the thing that took me there, and I think that caught their imagination, was Project Encore. We had just founded Project Encore in 2009, and so that kind of was part of a toehold into New York City for mobility. Another thing that I would say has changed in a big way, and not just in the city, and not just with gig work, has to do with female conductors. I know for a fact that there were many jobs that I was deemed fully qualified, even came in as the final two, and got word from afterwards when I was not hired, well, it was a difficult political environment. We didn't think a woman could handle it.
Oh.
Well, people would be sued over that sort of thing now.
Yes.
But, you know, at that time, it was, you know, I'm so grateful for the many women who have fought for these rights, who have marched for the rights that women have now. And, you know, I was not one of them. I just kept doing my thing, and I thought, well, okay, that's not where I'm going someplace else. And so I did, and made life happen that way. So I have great deference for those who really fought for the rights, and all I did was do my thing. Glass ceiling, I've got the blood on the head there.
Oh.
But yeah, my generation, professional conductor females are not plentiful. You know,
I see.
Younger, yes. So that's a big change.
Nice.
So more new music, more opportunities for young women coming up.
And this is a positive change, right?
Both of them are.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a question that I have, since we are talking about female composers, and you said that you had experiences like, oh, you know, just because I'm a female, I may not be considered the same way as a male counterpart in terms of getting a job or getting opportunities. So, do you feel like nowadays women and men, they have equal opportunities in terms of talking about core music?
I think so.
You feel like the playing field is level?
Certainly within the academic arena, I do believe that. And I think I mean, I haven't done a survey, but there are many women in some of the high level university and conservatory positions. So I think that part has evened out pretty well. In terms of women in high level conducting positions professionally, much less.
Oh, I see.
That's still it's growing. And I think generation younger than I will not have as much trouble. But it's not evened out in terms of, yeah, it's equal opportunity. I still don't think that's quite there. We've got a ways to go there. Academe, yes. Professional world, maybe not quite yet.
I see.
Getting there.
So when you arrived to New York City, tell me which university you were working for?
What brought me to the East Coast was New Jersey City University.
New Jersey City University. And nowadays you're lecturing where?
I'm up at Manhattan School of Music.
Manhattan School of Music. Did you go through like different universities between this time span, like from New Jersey to Manhattan School of Music? Did you have any other positions within universities?
I did. And for a while after I left Jersey City University, I was there for 4 years. And when I left there, I thought, well, let me, seek the next place. And I almost went out to Colorado, didn't quite, but that could have happened, but it didn't. And I kept that door open for a while. And then the more I became invested in building my own kind of professional pie, if you will, I really didn't look for those opportunities anymore. And the sorts of things that have come my way have been kind of upon request. Somebody's doing a sabbatical, could you cover for them this semester? Okay, and it would be full-time for 1 semester. And because I'm fairly flexible with what I do, and a great deal of it is, I run it, whatever it is, I can oftentimes be pliable with schedule and fit those things in. Even, sometimes it's like too much work for a little while, but I know it's got a defined period that's going to be, and I enjoy kind of on and off campuses. So I've done well, and then there have been a couple of universities also where there was somebody retiring who had been there for a really long time, and they wanted an interim to help kind of re-gear without the new person having to wear the weight of the newness, which I understand. And that's a big job. It's frankly as big a job as walking in and being the new person long term, because you're providing that spaciousness for somebody to come in and build their program. So I've enjoyed that with two universities. So I've been on and off campus, and always enjoy it. And I got students that I'm still in touch with from all of them.
Oh, that's nice.
So that's fun.
That's so nice. Yeah. So another question that I have, because we are talking about universities and everything, and you said something about like you were very focused at the beginning of your career here in this part of the country. You're very focused in academia, and then you slowly but surely, like, you found your way with the gig world and everything. You're still active in academia, but you do a little bit of the both worlds. So what would you say, in which point of time, like what event was the catalyst for you to have this opportunity to know a little bit more of the gig world?
Well, need is one thing. I mean, I had to make a living. There's that.
Yeah.
But I think there was, I can't point to just one thing, but I know that there was actually, we've talked about Schola Cantorum on Hudson, now known as Ember Choral Arts. That whole organization had a pre-life on the campus. I hadn't even thought about this for a long time, at Jersey City University. And I had started that when I first got there, needed to kind of let people know that there was some new things happening there, and how do I reach out. So we formed this independent chorus with the support of the dean, graduate students, music educators, alums, because they'd had a lot of very active alumni, had a very strong program back in the 1980s, and some of those people were still in the area. So we developed this choir, and we did 3 concerts a year, 2 of them with orchestra, 1 a cappella concert. I mean, it was a full season. And, Daddy College paid the bills, which was really kind of nice. I mean, we did the Symphony of Psalms, we did Chichester Psalms, we did the Poulenc Laureate, we did the major works. A lot of fun. And that was the last, I think I just had that for 2 years there. Started in my 3rd year. So we had 2 seasons with that. And then when I left the school, I mean, it was a great flourishing thing, and it was a great recruitment tool. I assumed the school would keep it. And the school wasn't interested.
Really?
But some of the singers were, and I got a call in August and said, we'd still like to be a choir, would you still like to be our director?
Nice. That's nice.
And at that time I was gigging around, keyboard sub work and Broadway and so forth, and so I said, look, I've got to at least make enough to cover, if I had to give up playing a show on a given night, I need to know that I could make that amount of money, because I didn't have any money to start with. But they got started, and oh my gosh, every week after rehearsal, this nascent little board would meet and put themselves together, and it was really hard. It was a lot of work. If I had any idea what we were getting into, I don't know what, but it was good work. It was meaningful work, and so they got it up and running. Bless them. And in the meantime, we all felt, although we missed the money that came from the college foundation of finances, we did feel a great sense of freedom with what we could program, and even how we could market. There's a wonderful thing to be working within a framework of a larger organization, and that academe can provide that kind of opportunity. And I think I know at this point in my life much better how to leverage that on behalf of the art than I did at that time. So there's a lot of good there, but there is also something that you lose by being part of something larger, because you have to brand within it rather than brand uniquely. So I'd say that experience of having an organization that was founded within an institution and then just by virtue of life happening going independent, that was something that, you know, I learned from that. And I saw the validity and the value in what you could do independently. So that was a spark. That was of real interest. And I found that over the years, I could follow where I felt the art was leading me. And of course, it went, as you know, went increasingly within that organization into new music. And, you know, I could not have been that, I won't say tunnel vision, but I could not have been that exclusive a focus on new music in an academic environment.
I see.
Because, for example, where I am now at Manhattan School of Music, you know, it's important that the young people coming up taste all of the different periods of music, the different styles. You know, we're not going to send them out with a degree in voice not having sung some Messiah choruses. You know, we've got to do the standards. And meanwhile, introducing them to world music and contemporary music and working with some of the composers on campus and so forth. So we try to do it all, but you have to have that breadth when you're on a campus, because it's, you know, we're training the next generation. It's different. But with Ember, all we had to do was satisfy our artistic heart, and we could follow it. So I think that's, you know, that's probably where the pull started.
That's amazing, and it's so nice to learn about Amber's history, like, because, you know, Amber is now the new name for Scholar Cantorum Hudson. And but Amber Core Arts is, like, everybody knows this her organization, so it's really fun to learn about that. Like, I didn't know anything about that. Like, that it started with college choir, and yeah, that's awesome. So would be fair to say that that was the spark, right? That it started you get involved with the gig world.
I just it hadn't occurred to me. I was, you know, academia is where I'm headed.
Nice. Yeah, that's nice. So another question that I have now, shifting gears a little bit, talking about New York City, because you've been living here for a while at this point, and other than, like, the gig world that you got exposed to while living here, what else would you say that living in New York City taught you that you didn't know before coming here?
Well, I think most clearly, this is one of the few places in the world that you can get away with this kind of foolish lifestyle. I mean, where else can you make a living through independent things that you've created? There are not many places like this. There are others, but not many. You know, usually somebody has a full-time academic position and maybe does a choir on the side, or maybe has a church job on the side or whatever. But to actually build a full professional palette that pays the bills out of independent work, you can't get away with that most places. But New York City has, you know, so many, well, churches with excellent music programs. So many wonderful independent choruses, most of whom are members of the New York Choral Consortium. You know, there are so many opportunities. You know, we have new little groups coming up all the time. So it's an exciting place to be, because anything that you choose to do, it's not to say that you'll have a full house all the time for anything. You won't, you know, but somebody will come, somebody will be interested, somebody will do something with it, because you're in one of the most exciting cities in the world.
Oh yeah.
You know, and arts are core to the city. You know, you walk down the street, you know, I was walking down 8th yesterday, and I happened to be behind a woman that, I don't know, from Adam, carrying a bag at a Juilliard. Okay. You know, you know, people carrying an instrument. I mean, it's where artists flourish.
Yes.
And so to be able to follow your muse, whatever that is, and, you know, it's not an easy thing. It's I've told the story many times, but you know, if a young person walks into my office, say on a campus, and says, "Dr. King, I'm really trying to decide whether or not I should go into music. What do you think?" I always have the same answer. I said, "No, I don't think so."
Really?
I do.
You
It's
answer
terrible.
that?
It's terrible, and I may follow it up with other things, but that's because it's like if you have to question it. Maybe no. I mean, it's hard. You know, you work a lot more hours. You know, than many other. You know, being in medicine, being in business, there are kind of defined work hours. Good work, healthy work, necessary work.
Yes.
I value all of that. But, you know, my husband, who is in business, would be the first to say, yeah, she works about twice as many hours as I do. It takes a lot of work to be in the arts and make a living at it.
It's so interesting that you said that, because it reminds me of something that I was thinking, like, that I always knew about my career. It feels like I didn't have any other choice. I don't know how you feel about that, but you know, and I never questioned. Like, you know, obviously, like when you are fresh out of high school and you're applying for colleges and everything, of course, like I tried one semester of like, you know, medicine, not medicine, but rehabilitation. Rehabilitation, I tried that. I last 2 months. Because, you know, it was coming like the anatomy test that I need to know like the names of the bones of the body and all of that, and I felt like this is not me. And it became clear that for the next year I applied for music college and I got in, and from that, like I knew like I need to do this. So, and I feel like if you question that, it's because you're not exactly sure. And if you're not sure, you're not gonna work the long hours that you're supposed to work in order to make this happen.
You know, any direction we go in life is going to have potholes in the road. I think that's just called life with a big L, right?
Yes.
And selecting the right direction in life for an individual is simply choosing a direction for which you have the right shock absorbers. You can survive the potholes and keep going with joy.
Yes.
You know, that's, if it's more duty than it is joy, then rethink. And because you got to work really hard, and if it's not joyful work, it's just not what you should be doing.
Yes, and you tell this to people inside academia when they ask you, like, should I do that?
If they're not sure, I'm like, well, what else would you? What are some other things that you're thinking about doing? I mean, I would draw them out more. I don't completely slam the door in their face.
Yeah, of course.
But I am very, you know, nobody did this for me when I was growing up. You know, I represent the generation in which it was still kind of okay. I would not have quite dealt with it well, but it was still kind of okay to be at home and raise the children for women, and yet it was kind of becoming maybe okay to have a career. And so there were options open, but nobody was exactly sure that was okay, and so there was kind of that limbo. And so when it was time for me to go into music as an undergraduate, it was like, well, that'd be a nice thing for her to, you know, have to raise the children. You know, nice, the arts in their lives. You know, and that is true. That worked out really well. But then, you know, went on for the master's degree, and well, that was fine, you know, and then on for the PhD. Well, we're awfully proud, but aren't we getting a little overly serious about this? Not my husband, always very supportive, but parents and aunts and uncles, you know, this is getting a little out of hand, you know, and so the notion that I would actually have a kind of heavy duty position or career or growth or whatever out of this area, that was not really quite okay for a woman at that point. To go into, and nobody ever talked to me as a result of that. Nobody ever said, look, this is going to be a tough way to make a living. Are you sure you want to take this on? Because you could look at, you know, X, Y, and Z. going into this, going into that. And, I enjoyed, my physics professor in high school said, don't you want to follow this? I mean, there are other,
Of course.
it wasn't that there wasn't capacity in other areas, but this is not just what I needed to do, it's who I am. It's my breath, it's my heart. It's a big part of, I won't say it is my soul, but it's how I express my soul. So it's, this is who I am, and it's not something that I could not be.
That's beautiful. Oh, that's so poetic and beautiful, and I agree 100%. So, this is who we are, right? We are musicians and we are artists, and we devote our lives to that. Obviously, considering because life, it's not our job, it's not just our calling. We need to deal with family, we need to deal with the environment, we need to deal with a bunch of other stuff that may take away a little bit of the joy that we have just by doing music. But I totally understand what you say when you say this is who I am. I love that phrase. So another question that I have now, more towards what do you tell people to do? Because we were talking about how you advise people in academia about that. So what would you say to people that are willing to come here to New York City to pursue a career in arts? What would you say that people should be ready to face? Because you already walked this path, because you came here from elsewhere. And most people that are in New York City, they are not from here. They are coming from elsewhere for business opportunities and whatnot. So what would you say to somebody watching this and thinking about I want to go to New York City, I want to try this and that, and I have this little money saved, and I can make a living for the first year, but then let's see where things will take them. So what would you say that person has to be ready to face?
Well, you've already alluded to a big one, and that is money. It is not inexpensive to live here. So whether there are friends, colleagues, family that can provide a stability, there needs to be some kind of life stability. I mean, we're being very practical here. I could go on and on about what a flourishing arts community and all the opportunities, and you could do this and that, and all of that is true. You've also got to eat, and you've got to sleep somewhere. And so that is something that has to be faced. Whether you're coming into a school where you would live on campus, such as we have up at Manhattan School, or whatever the situation. Maybe there's a family member they can live with. Maybe we have a number of international students, and come to the city as a group of 3 or 4 and share an accommodation. Whatever it is, don't assume you can arrive at Kennedy International and check the paper for an apartment. It's tough to find the stability, and you know this as well as I do.
Yes.
It's also, if there's another pathway, there's the shopping around from gig to gig and you wait tables. That's the standard story, right? But ideally, there's something a little more stable than that can be a part-time financial base, because that's necessary. So figuring that out. Beyond that, I think it's probably important to have some drive. Actually, just having a conversation with a young woman yesterday who's incredibly talented, making a living with her art already, and is leaning toward conducting a bit more increasingly, and wondering, do I go into this? Do I not? What do I, where really is that beat? And and yet she kind of happened into some opportunities, sort of accidentally, and yet I don't quite believe in accidents. And so she's looking at that, and my guidance is always, don't just check in with your heart. Live off of your heart. Live from your heart. Follow your heart. You know, I used to say something very idealistic to my boys growing up. You know, follow your heart and the money will follow. That's a real nice sounding phrase.
Yes.
And to an extent, I still believe it, because I think you'll do what you need to do with where your heart is leading you to put food on the table for your kids. We do that. But it's not as easy as, well, if you really want to real bad, you'll find money flowing your way. It's not that easy. But I think it is crucial, you know, just like, you know, we were just saying a moment ago, this is who we are. And to find that space and take that time on a regular basis for whatever somebody calls it, meditation, you know, however they check in, however we check in with something that is larger than ourselves. That's how we find our grounding, and it's how we find our pathway. And it's not like, nope, got it, today's the day, here we go. This is, you know, life is not a straight line, you know, and so to have the flexibility, but always checking in with the heart. You know, keep your list of non-negotiables as short as possible. That's to the, you know, whatever is necessary for your life. Know what that is, and stick to it with all you've got. Hold everything else gently.
Please say that again, because I want to record. I want to make this inside my head. So you said, like, keep your list of non-negotiables short, but stick to it. That's so, I never heard it that way. But it makes total sense, because, you know, most of us musicians, like, I've been through that situation. Like, I used to be an executive assistant for a private bank, and then I did sales for another institution, and then I did data analysis for another institution, and then I found out, you know, I was lucky enough to have a career teaching music for charter schools and everything. I don't do this anymore because, you know, for personal reasons that it's not the topic of this conversation. But, you know, I understand from a living perspective, like from an experiential, from an experience. Let me say that. I understand exactly what that means. And never in my life somebody put in a simple phrase, just like you did. And I'm so grateful for that, because it's exactly this, like, you know in your core who you are, and you know in your core, like, what hurts you, because you are disaligned with your path. And you need to be respectful to that, but also at the same time, because life happens, you need to be willing to try different things, and, you know, make sure that you wear different hats. And even if it's not related to music in a glance, like, you need to be grateful that you still have the opportunity to pursue different things, but keeping your core values intact. I love that. So, Deborah, now changing a little bit of the topic, because, you know, this conversation can last the whole afternoon. Like, I'm having such a good time, and I always learn new things from you. Like, you're a great teacher, great mentor. So, one thing that I would like to ask, in your career in core music, could you tell me, like, you don't need to tell me 3 of them, because I know that it's just not one. But tell us about a piece that you conduct or you interact with in any capacity, like singing or playing, a piece of music that you remember to this day and it brings you joy, just remembering that, like, your favorite piece. I know that there is not one, but tell us about one of your favorite ones.
Such a difficult question.
Yeah.
And, you know, actually, the only answer that I can give that is kind of ready to go is whatever I'm working on now, because I am in love with everything that I'm working on.
Really?
I mean, I'm in a fortunate position to be able to be the not just the conductor, but the artistic director of everything that I conduct. And so that means I choose the repertoire for it, and so I choose things I like. And you know, there are different levels of engagement with music. You know, there are little short anthems or motets or psalm settings or what have you that I do with my church choir that I just love. I think that, and there's an immediacy to them, and the choir responds, and it's just kind of a little moment of magic. And I'm right there with it. And my biggest challenge is sleeping that night, because that music, it gets stuck in me, and I just keep reliving those ones. So that's a little tiny thing. You know, I mean, my big heartthrob since I was a middle teen was the Bach B minor Mass. I have never conducted the whole thing. I will before I die. I love the Bach B minor Mass. I love the Vaughan Williams G minor Mass. I love the Bruckner E minor Mass with the brass accompaniment, not the ones with orchestra, but the full brass. So I mean, there are some major works that I can point to. One major work by John Muehlheisen. You know him as a composer, Seattle composer. I like his writing a great deal. We did actually two major oratorios of his. One of them called Pietà had to do with the Kipling story and with the World War and the experience of war and so forth. And 3-hour oratorio, massive production to put together. Included dance with it. I mean, it was big production. Included it in our season that this is with Ember a number of years back. Our season focusing on the centennial anniversary of the culmination of World War I, the armistice. And I'll never forget, at the end of that concert, a man came up to me. I didn't think he was ever going to be able to speak, crying, and you know, and he ultimately got his voice, and he said, "I've never been to war. I've never worn a uniform. I wasn't even in the Boy Scouts. But I feel like I was on the battlefield for having lived through that, this music."
That's powerful.
And I think that's what the arts can do, that is our little piece of magic that our world so desperately needs. We can live beyond ourselves through a piece of art, whether it's a piece of art on the wall, a piece of art that we sing, dance art that we're involved with physically. We are transported to different places, and we are richer for going there.
Oh my God, everything that this woman says sounds so wise and so poetic. Like, you have a way with words that I envy in a good sense, because, you know, you have this calm demeanor and you explain everything, and everything is understandable, and I can understand everything, and I understand where you're coming from. And it's such a joy to hear those life lessons that, you know, we are learners for the entire time of our lives. Like, we're always learning something new. But I learned so much, like, by listening to you and those core values that we are talking about. Because this is a core, in my opinion, this is a core value when we do art. Whatever art, like the wall and the paintings and acting and dancing, like, to live beyond ourselves. Like, to have a glimpse of how that life looks like and how that person felt going through that experience that I'm singing about. And as an audience member, I may never experience that in my lifetime, but I can have a glimpse of that. And it's so powerful. Oh my God. Oh, I love this conversation so much. So, one of my last questions, tell us about your future projects with Amber or with academia. Like, what the future brings in terms of your career. Like, what are you thinking next? Because you said, like, oh, I'm in love with the pieces that I'm working on, and I love that, and I understand where you're coming from, and I'm honored that at some point you loved one of my pieces, not just one, because you performed several. And
I still love Bubbles.
Oh, thank you. Thank
That
you.
was so much fun.
So much fun.
Yeah, we got
right?
to blow bubbles while we.
Yeah, I did something different, like, something quirky, because I am more like a classical kind of composer, like that's my language when I write music. But for bubbles, I did something like, oh, let's put some bubbles and see what happens, and it was a joy.
It was
like
fun.
watching you
Yeah.
guys performing, like such an amazing experience. So my question is, what the future brings, like what are your future projects, if you want to share with us, like what you're working on for the next season or for the end of this season?
Well, we've with Ember, which is we program for a season, have a theme for a season, and actually we're in the first year of a 2-season cycle dealing with artificial intelligence. And there's a lot there, a lot we can look at in terms of how do we interact with machines as a human species. And as you know, you were one of our soloists last fall in Andrea Clearfield's little oratorio, Beyond the Binary. And that had to do with the introduction of machines early in the 20th century, automated processes and so forth. And a lot of people were really afraid of it. It's like, that's going to take my job, and that's really all I care about. And it's easy to look at that in kind of a flippant way, but you know what? If I'm one of those people who's suddenly not going to have a job, and I'm 57 years old, and I'm thinking, well, I've still got kids in college, and what's going to happen? That's scary. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. So there's always been that kind of dissonance between the human species and the growing capacity of machines. So that's what we're looking at now in the 21st century with the evolution of AI, and we're not looking at something that's coming. We're looking at something that's been here a while, but we're more popularly aware of it, or more publicly aware of it. A lot of good parts to it that we enjoy a great deal, and there are other things that are kind of scary. So that's part of what we're looking at, and what is the role of what is the value of the human species through no matter what. And I guess we get back to, again, our very short list. What are our non-negotiables? What are our core values? And so we're centering on those. Upcoming in May, we've got a concert that's called On the Heart of Things. And so we're looking at not just love, which, it's easy to do a Hearts and Flowers concert. That's always lots of fun and a very feel-good event. But also looking at the whole, the emotion pairs. So there's love, and then, whatever is it disdain? Is it neglect? Is it, I think hatred is not necessarily the opposite of love, but looking at that emotion spectrum that is identifiable through a love relationship. So that's what's coming up with Ember in May. Then we're looking at Resilient Hope in early November. I figure that that's something that the human species is capable of, that machines will never be able to aspire to. They can do tasks. They can even, through intelligence learning, can learn to figure things out, but they will never be able to aspire to hope. And I think particularly in November of 2024, we are going to need that in a big way, and we're going to be the weekend right before the election. So Resilient Hope, and we'll be going into that. And then I'm not sure yet whether I'm toying with several ideas for later in the season for Ember next year. Ember also, as you may be aware, I don't know if you are or not, but we've started a composer lab, and so we're working with young composers it's a competition to be accepted, and then those a younger one and an emerging composer that are chosen are commissioned to write in a given theme, and so I look forward to that. We have a workshop with that's coming up. I love that kind of vitality of interaction with composers, and the Ember singers really thrive on that as well. And new in the Ember palette this year is we're kind of thinking might be a permanent cabaret sort of evening, and it's not like a hey kids let's put on a show sort of thing, but it's we have so many solo talents in the organization. So that's working in as well. So that's sort of Ember. Project Encore continues to flourish. At some point, it will need to find a home other than, or in addition to just myself. Probably, we're a very small staff for it. But Project Encore, in very short capsule, is an online catalog of contemporary choral music, heavily vetted. We accept approximately half. It's pretty close to just of the submissions. These are pieces that have been premiered but have not caught toehold yet in the choral canon. So those that are vetted successfully into the catalog go in the catalog. We represent close to 500 compositions and 200 some composers at this point. And these are good pieces. This is something that there is nothing else like it in the world. It fills a function, and it needs to live on beyond whatever time,
Yes.
my work world takes me, which I'm not looking at any any endpoint. I'm not interested in retirement. I don't know that word.
Forget about that.
No, but so Project Encore continues to flourish. Manhattan School, I'm very happy there, making some good music there.
Awesome.
How that relationship will develop, it's a little too early to know for sure, but I'm very happy doing what I'm doing. I am thrilled to be at Trinity Episcopal Church in Asbury Park. They seem to be just hungry for the development of choral program. I've inherited 5 singers who sometimes were there and sometimes not. We have just a little more than 2 years down the road, we have 24 on the roll, and they just inhale learning. It's not like we just have a cast of thousands. These are people who really, me. I work my singers.
Yeah.
And just because they're volunteers in a church does not change that picture. They will tell you they work very hard, but it's joyful work, and that's a good match. So, beyond that, I go with where I'm led.
Amazing. Oh my God, so good. Based on everything that you said that the future brings to you, you said something that is that caught my attention, and I want to ask you some follow-up question about that. You said something about exploring the AI development and the relationship with AI and humanity, and how things will look like in the future, because we don't know what's gonna happen, but we have some glimpses of artificial intelligence and everything, and you explored this quite extensively last year, the concert that I had the pleasure to sing with Amber, and also moving forward. So my question is, what is your concern, if you have any, about artificial intelligence? Like what we know now, what you know now about the capabilities and everything. I'm not looking for an expert opinion or anything. I just want to hear your take on that.
I think my perspective in life is not to fear newness. I mean, that's just kind of how I'm put together. And I'm not necessarily condoning it, but you're asking, that's just kind of who I am. So it's like, well, this is here. Let's not fight it. Let's find out what's good about it and leverage it. If there are things that are concerning about it, let's ask ourselves what it is that causes us concern. If it's a well-founded concern, well, then let's figure out ways to address it. If it's something that, maybe is maybe I have a fear element, let me figure out where that's coming from and deal with it within myself. So but I'm more likely to accept something maybe too soon. I don't know, but things that are new and that are fresh. I guess I have a fear of being stuck. I like newness. I like freshness, but in a well-grounded context. So it's not just babies, bathwaters. We're not throwing things out to take in new, but we're saying, here is life. Here is universe that is so much larger than who we are.
Oh yeah.
And here is this new thing that the human brain has created. And I think there's so much that is exciting that we can create far beyond even what we can see now. And I just find that enlivening and exciting. So I guess I don't feel threatened by it. I feel like if anything, we are likely, we might be teased into accepting a lower version of who we as a human species can be. Are we going to be able to digitize ourselves into boxes? I'm not afraid of a digitized tool or an artificially intelligent tool. I guess if there's one concern I would have is, are we going to look at that and say, the machine can do that, but so can I? That to me is a limitation on the human species, and we don't need to do that. Because we can always live beyond, we can always think beyond, we can always feel beyond, just as we're exploring with Ember through this series. You know, a machine cannot feel. A machine cannot, I know that they can create data streams and they can create many things, but a machine cannot create motion on a canvas in the same ways that a human being can. If we want a larger context for it, let's look back at the end of the 18th century. You know, Mozart made up a music game. You know, you roll the dice. Oh, 7. Okay, so I pick up card 7. That has a picture of a measure in 4/4. Okay, roll the dice. 3. Pick up card 3. That has a measure, and you come up with 8 measures. That's a sweet little minuet, and that was a party game. Nice. Okay, well, in a sense, that's a very early stage of, can we create music in that? I don't know that he would ever call that music. He called it a party game.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So can we create sounds that are, you know, filling a function musically? Yeah, we can. In fact, in the Ember Ablaze Composer Lab that I referenced earlier, in the requirements and the process and all that we laid out for people interested in applying, we said, we did not say you cannot use artificial intelligence. What we said was, if you use elements of artificial intelligence in compositions that you will show us, you need to be honest about what they are. What are your elements? You know, how are you using that tool in your creative process? Not instead of your creative process, but within your creative process. It's a tool. It's a tool.
Yeah, it's a tool.
So we use it as a tool. We don't use it to take the place of human creativity, human heart, human soul. Never.
Another piece of poetry to you guys. Yeah, I totally agree, because, you know, it's a tool. Like, it's something that we made, and we're gonna use it to the best of our ability and for the betterment of ourselves and society at large. And I totally agree with you. Like, you know, let me tell you something. Sometimes in terms of writing emails or, you know, communicating in writing, I use a little bit of artificial intelligence, just because I'm always conscious about my English abilities and everything. So I use a little bit, like when I send emails, like not all the time, but, you know, for more complicated stuff or whatever. So, but I use as a tool. Like, I don't use, like, in terms of you know, substituting, like in terms of taking away my humanity when I'm writing down. So what I do, like, I write down what I want to say, and then I ask the tool to make it a little better, to fix some errors and some stuff.
But they're your ideas.
Yes.
You don't ask the machine to come up with ideas. That's you.
Yeah, that's exactly.
So we do not digitize into a machine. We use the machine so that we can go beyond.
I love that. I love that, Deborah. It was such a pleasure interviewing you. Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Thank you so much for having me. The very last question I always ask my guests: if you could say something to the world, there are no language barriers, no culture differences, like everybody will listen to you. and you have this opportunity to say, to give a message to the entire world, what would you say?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. What would you say if you had like the microphone that will reach every human being living in this world, in this era right now?
You are unique. There is no one like you. You are of value. No one will ever have your value. You will know yourself best when you connect with something larger than who you are. Find yourself within that context and be you.
I'm not gonna say anything else. Deborah, with this beautiful message, thank you so much for this time. It was a pleasure listening to you. Like, I feel refreshed. I feel like, oh, you know, when you are in a current, like you are in a waterfall, like you're in a desert and you see a waterfall and you immerse yourself in that waterfall. And that's basically what I feel like when you say, when you share with us that kind of, you know, your experience and everything, and those advices, like those thoughts that you have to share, they are so deep, and they talk to my heart in a way that it's very refreshing, like a waterfall. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us.
It's my pleasure.
Oh, I'm so glad. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I know that was a long interview, but I'm so appreciative of your time, and I hope that you guys take some value of this conversation. I know I took, and I'm gonna remember this for many years, because you know it's on the internet. It's gonna be alive forever, and we can always check it out like years down the line. Thank you so much, Deborah.
Is it fair to say my website?
Of course. No, I'm gonna put the website, everything on the description.
Then I don't need to then. Because
Okay.
it'll be there.
You're gonna see on the description like Amber's website, Project Encore website, Deborah's website, and anything else that you want to share. Just tell me, and I'm gonna post it.
Excellent.
Okay. Thank you so much, guys. Enjoy, and see you next time.